Hello everybody, you're welcome to the first day of our webinar on Mastering English Language Exam Strategies by JAMB Tutorials. In this webinar, we're going to be learning different strategies that will help you in answering questions in the different sections of English language exams in WASC and in JAMB. Today, we are going to begin with comprehension passages. We're going to learn the strategies that will help you in answering questions on comprehension passages. Now, I believe you already know what a comprehension passage is. A comprehension passage is a piece of writing provided for the purpose of assessing the readers, that is, your ability to understand a piece of writing. It can be a story, it can be an article, it can be an essay, it can be an essay from a book, and it's typically followed by questions to test your ability to understand the main point or the main idea or theme of the passage. Extract specific information from the passage, make inferences or draw conclusions based on the content of the passage, analyze the author's tone and perspective. Okay, now these are the things you're expected to be able to understand in a comprehension passage for you to be able to effectively answer questions on it. Now, there are different types of comprehension passage questions, and it's important to understand these different types of comprehension passage questions to enable you effectively answer questions on each type of comprehension passage question. Okay, now we have the first one, literal question. Literal question focuses on facts and details clearly mentioned in the passage. Facts and details that are clearly mentioned in the passage. We have inferential questions. Now, inferential questions require the reader to draw conclusions based on the information that is provided in the passage. Vocabulary-based questions test the reader's ability, that's your ability to understand words and phrases in the context that is used in the passage. We have main idea or theme questions. Now, theme questions test the reader's ability to understand the overall point or idea of a passage, the overall point or idea of a passage. So these are the different types of comprehension passage questions that we have. Let's further look at the different types of comprehension passage questions and learn the strategies that will help you in answering each type. Now, let's start with inferential questions. Inferential questions require you to go beyond the explicit information provided in the passage and make logical conclusions based on evidence or clues within the passage. Make logical conclusions based on evidence or clues within the passage. Okay, you don't have to bring in your own opinion. That you're asked to make conclusions, that you're asked to make logical conclusions shouldn't make you to bring in your own opinion. Okay, make sure whatever it is that you are going to provide as an answer contains the information that is provided in the passage. Now, these questions test the reader's ability to interpret, deduce, and understand implied meanings rather than directly stated facts. Okay, so this type of question is the type of question that requires you to figure out the answer. It's not the type of question that requires you to go to the passage and pick the correct answer. Rather, it requires you to figure out the correct answer. Okay, it requires you to figure out the correct answer. Let's see some examples of inferential questions. Okay, why do you think the main character acted the way he did? Okay, now this type of question, if you see this type of question, it will make you think, it will make you try to figure out the answer, it will make you to try to draw a logical conclusion based on facts that are already provided in the passage. Another example, what can you infer about the author's attitude towards the subject? Okay, what can you infer about the author's attitude towards the subject? Now, this will make you to think of implied meanings in his tone, in his approach towards the subject, towards the theme or the main idea of the passage. So this type of question requires you to figure out the answer rather than going to the passage to pick a particular piece of information, and that is what inferential questions are all about. Now it's time for us to learn the strategies that will help you in answering inferential questions in your exams. Now, the first strategy is to understand the keyword of the question. Now, when you are given a question, when you're given an inferential question or any question at all in the comprehension passage, you have to first understand how to identify the keywords. Identify the keywords of the question. Now, let's take for example, why do you think the main character acted the way he did? Why do you think the main character acted the way he did? Okay, now the keywords in the question are the main character acted the way he did. The main character acted the way he did. Okay, now you're going to look for where the main character did something in the passage. Okay, so those are the keywords. Keywords are what you should look for in the passage. What you should look for in the passage. Be able to understand the keyword, the central idea of the question. Once you're able to understand the keyword or the central idea, what you are being asked for, what you are being asked to look for in the passage, you have ignited the engine of your success, because it's very important you understand what you should look for in the passage. That's the main thing, okay? Because if you don't understand the keywords or the main idea of the question, it will be very difficult for you to answer questions on comprehension passage correctly. Keywords answer the question, what should I look for in the passage? What does this question want me to look for in the passage? Okay, that's what keyword does. Now, the next thing is context of the question. The context of the question. Now, identify the environment where you should find the keyword. Now, let's take for example, what do you infer about the author's attitude towards the subject if you have this kind of question in your exams? Okay, now, can you identify the keywords? The keywords in this question. What do you infer about the author's attitude towards the subject? Okay, now the keywords are author's attitude. Author's attitude. So you're going to look for author's attitude. The author's attitude in the passage. Okay, that's what you're going to look for. Now, where are you going to look for it? As it relates to the subject of the passage. As it relates to the subject of the passage, if there are some attitudes that are shown by the author towards any other thing in the passage or towards any other person in the passage, it's none of your business. Your business is to find the author's attitude as it relates to the subject matter of the passage. So what you're going to look for in the passage, which is the keyword, okay, what you're going to look for in the passage is the author's attitude, and where you're going to look for it is where it relates to the subject matter of the passage. Okay, where it relates to the subject of the passage, that's where you're going to look for it, and that is the context. So context is the environment where you are going to look for the keyword, and keyword is what we are going to look for in the passage. Keywords, what am I going to look for in the passage? Context, where am I going to look for the keywords in the passage? I hope that is clear. Now, the next type of question, which is literal question, is still the same strategy we are going to use in answering literal questions. Questions that focus on facts. Questions that focus on facts and details clearly mentioned in the passage. They don't require you to make inferences or interpretations. They focus on facts, details explicitly stated in the passage, okay? They don't require you to make inferences. And like I said, it's the same strategy of getting the keywords and the context. Now, let's take, for example, who is the main character of the passage? Who is the main character of the passage? Now, what's the keyword? The main character. That's what we're going to look for. And we are going to look for it in the passage. Okay, that's the context. What is the name of the school mentioned in the passage? What are you going to look for in the passage? What are you going to look for? Name of the school, okay? We are going to look for it in the passage. That's the context. The context is passage, and the keywords are name of the school, okay? So, literal questions do not require you to make inference. They just require you to go to the passage and pick a particular piece of information. Go to the passage, pick a particular piece of information. That's what is required of you in literal questions. Now, like I mentioned earlier, another type of comprehension passage questions is the theme-based questions. The theme-based questions. Now, theme-based questions are questions that focus on central message or idea of the passage. There are questions that require the reader to identify, interpret, overarching points or lessons the author is trying to convey. Okay, often looking beyond details. Now, theme-based questions are questions that require you to look for the central idea, the central message of the passage. They don't require you to look for illustrations or examples. You have to find the central idea of the passage. Okay, now let's look at some strategies that will help you in answering theme-based questions. The first strategy is to read the passage thoroughly. This is important. For you to understand the main idea of the passage, you have to read it thoroughly. You have to read the passage thoroughly, probably 2 times, to understand the main idea of the passage. Now, the next thing you have to do is to identify the main idea of the passage by paying attention to noun that is mostly repeated. Okay, you have to pay attention to noun because a comprehension passage is always about something. It's always about a person or a thing. So you have to pay attention to the noun, the name of the person or the thing that is mostly repeated in the passage, because the whole idea, the idea of the passage, the main idea of the passage or the central message of the passage will revolve around the noun that is mostly repeated in the passage. So you have to pay attention to the noun or pronoun that is mostly repeated in the passage. Now, another thing you should do is to thoroughly read the first paragraph of the passage and the last paragraph of the passage. Read the first and last paragraphs of the passage thoroughly. Now, you know that every good essay will introduce the central idea of the passage in the first paragraph, and in the last paragraph, the writer will conclude the idea of the passage. So reading the first paragraph thoroughly and the last paragraph thoroughly will help you understand the central idea of the passage. Okay, so you have to read the passage thoroughly, identify the main idea of the passage by paying attention to the noun or pronoun that is mostly repeated, then read the first and last paragraphs of the passage very well to get clues of the central idea of the passage. Now, while choosing an answer, make sure you don't choose an answer that talks about a specific thing that happened in the passage, but an answer that talks about the central idea, the central theme of the passage, not just a specific action in the passage. Now it's time for us to read a passage and apply all that we've learned on how to answer questions on comprehension passages. Okay, now this passage is from JAMB UTME 2018 past questions. In order to approach the problem of anxiety in play, let us consider the activity of building and destroying a tower. Many a mother think that her little son is in a destructive stage or even has a destructive personality because after building a big tower, the boy cannot follow her advice to leave the tower for daddy to see, but instead must kick it, make it collapse. The almost money pleasure with which children watch the collapse in a second of production play labor has puzzled many, especially since the child does not appreciate it at all if his tower falls by accident or by a helpful uncle's hand. He, the builder, must destroy it himself. This game, I should think, arises from the not-so-distant experience of sudden falls at the very time when standing upright on wobbly legs afforded a new and fascinating perspective on existence. The child, who consequently learns to make a tower stand up, enjoys causing the same tower to waver and collapse. In addition to the active mastery over a previously passive event, it makes one feel stronger to know that there is somebody weaker and taller, unlike little sister, can't cry and call mommy. Now, let's look at some questions on this passage. Okay, now the first one, according to the passage, it gives the child great pleasure. Option A, for daddy to see the tower he has built. Option B, to destroy the tower himself. C, to see his tower accidentally destroyed. D, to be helped to destroy the tower. According to the passage, it gives the child great pleasure. Now, what is the keyword, or what are the keywords in this question? The keyword in this question is pleasure. Okay, so we're going to look for pleasure in the passage. We are going to look for pleasure in the passage. That's the keyword. Now, what is the context? Where are we going to look for the word pleasure? okay, where it relates to the child. If there's another person that experiences pleasure in the passage, it's not our business. Our business is where it relates to the child, okay? So you're going to look for pleasure in the environment of the child, where the child is mentioned. Now let's look at the second paragraph. The almost manic pleasure with which children watch the collapse in a second of production. Now you've seen the word pleasure, right? Now let's read around it. We have to read maybe 2 sentences before it and 2 sentences after it to know the cause of the pleasure. Remember the question is what gives the child pleasure, okay? What gives the child pleasure? So to find the reason for the pleasure, we have to read some sentences before the word pleasure, okay? Now let's start from the previous paragraph. Let's start from, because after building a big tower, the boy cannot follow her advice to leave the tower for daddy to see, but instead must kick it, make it collapse. Must kick it, make it collapse, okay? The almost manic pleasure with which children watch the collapse in a second. You can say the answer now, okay? Must kick it and make it collapse. That's what gives the child manic pleasure. That's what gives the child pleasure. To kick the tower himself and make it collapse. Okay, so that is the answer. Now let's look at the options and choose the correct answer. We have option A, for daddy to see the tower he has built. No, the correct answer is that he must kick it and make it collapse. To destroy the tower himself, of course, is the correct answer. Option C, to see his tower accidentally destroyed. The child doesn't appreciate it when a helpful uncle destroys the tower or the tower falls by accident, okay? So it doesn't give the child pleasure. To be helped to destroy the tower is not the correct answer. So option B, to destroy the tower himself, is the correct answer. Okay, he must kick it and make it collapse. That's what gives the child pleasure, manic pleasure, according to the passage. Now let's see the next question. What other feeling does the child derive from the fall of his tower apart from pleasure? What other feeling does the child derive from the fall of his tower apart from pleasure? We have option A, strength, B, anxiety, C, pity, and D, depression. Now, what's the keyword here? What's the keyword in this question? What other feeling does the child derive from the fall of his tower apart from pleasure? The keyword in this question is feeling. Feeling, that's the word we're going to look for. The word feeling, or a word synonymous with feeling. That's what we're going to look for in the passage. And where are we going to look for it? Aside from pleasure, okay? Any other feeling that is mentioned aside from pleasure, okay? So we are going to go back to the passage and look for another feeling that is mentioned aside from pleasure that the child derives from the fall of his tower. Now let's read the last 4 lines of the passage. We have, it makes one feel stronger to know that there is somebody weaker and taller, unlike little sister, can't cry and call mommy. Okay, now we already have our keyword feel, okay? Feel stronger. So we can already see our answer, okay? It makes one feel stronger. So that shows strength. Now let's go back to the question and pick the correct answer. Option A, strength, and this is correct, okay? This is the correct answer. Option A, strength. It makes one feel stronger. That is strength. So option A is the correct answer. B, anxiety, pity, depression, okay? That's not what the passage says. The passage says it makes one feel stronger. So option A is the correct answer. The third question, how does the author try to explain this distractive stage? How does the author try to explain this distractive stage? Now, what's the keyword or the keywords? Distractive stage, right? Distractive stage. Now, what's the context where the author is explaining it? Where the author is explaining it. So, we are going to look for distractive stage where the author is explaining it. Okay, now let's go back to the passage. Now you can see distractive stage in the first paragraph. Now we have to look for it where the author is explaining it, okay? Now we've seen distractive stage in the first paragraph, so that's not where we should look for distractive stage. Now let's see where the author himself is talking and where he's explaining distractive stage. Now let's look at the second paragraph. This game, I should think. Now, who is talking? The author. This game, I should think, arises from not so distant experience of sudden falls of the very time when standing upright on wobbly legs afforded a new and fascinating perspective on existence. Okay, now this is the author explaining the game that makes a mother to think the child is in a destructive stage. So this is his own stance on destructive stage. The game, I should think, arises from the not so distant experience of sudden falls at the very time when standing upright on wobbly legs afforded a new and fascinating perspective on existence. Now let's go back to the question. We've seen where the author is explaining destructive stage and his own point of view about destructive stage. How does the author try to explain this destructive stage? It is the last stage in child's development. No, that's not what the author says. The child wants to displease his parents. No. It grows out of the child's recent experiences of sudden fall. Of course, that's the author's stance on destructive stage. Okay, now option D, the child is just going through a destructive stage, is incorrect. So option C is the correct answer. Now let's see the last question, which is a thematic question. Choose the most appropriate title of the passage. Choose the most appropriate title of the passage. We have option A, the joy of playing. Option B, the joy of building and destroying. Option C, children's tendency to disobey their mothers. Option D, children's peculiar passion for distraction. So which of these is the correct answer? The joy of playing, option A, is incorrect because it's not overarching, it's not comprehensive. It just talks about a part of the passage. Okay, option B, the joy of building and destroying, this is the correct answer. Okay, this is the option that talks about everything that runs throughout the passage. Option C, children's tendency to disobey their mothers, is not correct. It's not what the passage is all about. Option D, children's peculiar passion for distraction, of course this is not what the passage is all about. Option B, the joy of building and destroying, is the correct answer. Okay. Alright, that's it about how to answer questions on comprehension passages. I believe if you understood this video and you're able to practice past questions, you'll be able to answer questions effectively on comprehension passages. That'll be all for today. Thank you very much for learning with me. I will see you guys again tomorrow. Bye.